Feeling stuck in your business journey? We've all been there, watching others build freedom while wondering when it will be your turn. Today's guest didn't start with a blueprint or investors. He started with just one question. What if I just asked? What started as a temporary job for his father-in-law turned into a 15-year journey of ownership, leadership, and eventually selling to private equity. But the real story isn't the exit, it's what happened in between. The sleepless nights, the awkward transitions, the lessons learned from coaching football and leading teams. All of this shaped how he defined freedom, money, and purpose. In this episode, we unpack the hidden power of asking for what you want, the faith that keeps you grounded when the money starts moving, and how to turn business into a platform for generosity instead of greed. Because freedom isn't found in the sale, it's found in the process of building something that outlives you. Stick around. By the end of this one, you'll see why the biggest risk isn't failure, it's never asking, what if? Nathan, welcome. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So you've worn a lot of hats in business. You started off employee, coach, owner. You've been you're an investor now.
Yep.
Looking back at business ownership, what actually unlocked freedom for you? And what's still part that makes you feel like you're in a cage?
So how do you define freedom? I guess that's the kind of the question. So, I define freedom in several different ways. So there's obviously financial freedom. I think and we can talk about political freedom if you want to go down that road, but we're blessed to live in the best country in the world in the history of all humankind. So opportunities exist for everyone to be free. And, we start with freedom and then go, okay, how do we get personally free then? Now, I'm a faith-filled person, so there's a spiritual freedom that's also important. And I think that really is the basis of everything else, because you can have millions of dollars in the bank, but if you don't have that kind of freedom, you're not truly free. You're a slave to sin, you're a slave to your vices, you're a slave to chasing the dollar. It doesn't matter how many dollars you have. If you're chasing the dollar, you're a slave to the dollar. So, taking that money and making it a tool for you, not the goal for you, that I think is one piece where I realized that is when you're financially free. When the dollar doesn't become the end goal, it becomes the tool to work towards some type of goal, passion, a pursuit, some type of meaningful gain for society, your family, whatever it is. But when money doesn't become that goal itself, it becomes the tool to help you reach that goal. That's when you're more financially free, in my book. The moment in time I felt the most financial freedom, you're probably going to say when you sold your company. No, it was when I paid off the mortgage. That's when I was like, whew, I feel free. I feel like that I don't have any constraints now, because my family's got a place to live and call home, and no matter what else happens, we've got that. That was the one time that's when I really felt financial freedom in my book. Yeah.
When you paid off your house,
yeah.
Do you think that enabled you to take bigger risks with your business?
It wasn't even so much that. I mean, we had already, I had already bought into the business at the time. We were going through that transition period in that time frame. So, I knew business ownership was important. This company was owned by my father-in-law when I started working there. So I had his example. My own father had started his own business and had an exit when it was a small company, years before. So I grew up around people that were not afraid to step out and start their own thing and do their own thing. So I had good influence. I had good teaching from that perspective. I was surrounded by people that thought business ownership, entrepreneurship, that was important and something that you could go for, whether you felt like you had the means to do it or not. You could just go for it. So that was, I think, more important was to have those type of examples than it was to have that freedom. I just remember just that feeling of the weight off the shoulders moment of, hey, I don't have to worry about paying the bills as much anymore because that part's done. So.
You talked about buying a business from your father-in-law.
Yeah.
How fun was that process?
That was a good process. It was a very good process overall. So take you back to kind of 05, 06. I'm in North Carolina with my wife. We had decided to get out of the Midwest after college. We met in college at Truman State and got married, and then let's get out of the Midwest. Let's try something new. You know, we're young. We don't have any ties besides our own families back home, and they're supportive of us trying something new. So let's go. So she got a job at Duke Medical Center as a nurse. They moved us out there, which was fantastic. I had studied to be a high school science teacher and a football coach. That's what I was going to do because I played football in high school and college, and I had a great time. I helped coach the football team at Truman State, and then also during the last fall that I was there, the high school team, the local high school team. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that. I thought that's what I was going to be doing. Went out to North Carolina, found out that I couldn't teach there because, you know, even though they had a reciprocal agreement with 46 states, Missouri, where I'm from, wasn't one of them. So it was kind of annoying to find out that I couldn't teach. And so I was like, okay, I have a bio degree too. I'll look around. Research Triangle Park is like 400 pharmaceutical companies or something like that. Ridiculous. But so I went, worked some retail jobs and then found a job as basically a lab rat, doing that kind of stuff for a while. We had our oldest son, Alex, out there. And we always knew at that point, you know, when we started a family, we're going to move back. We're going to find a place. So I had started looking for jobs to come back. Lori really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and I really wanted to make sure that that was happening. We started looking at places. I'm from Central Missouri. She's from Omaha, the Elkhorn area. And so we decided to look. I started looking in Kansas City, thinking halfway in between might be great for both. After a little more discussion with my wise wife, she said that we really should live closer to one of our families. And I said, okay. And she goes, I don't really like Central Missouri. I said, so how about Omaha? She goes, that's a great choice. So that's the wisdom of the wife, right? Yeah, she was. Yes, it was compromise. She let me choose, and I made the right choice. So it was great, and it worked out well. But my father-in-law obviously knew we were looking to move back. He goes, hey, I've got like a 4 to 6 month gig. He needed this. He worked, this was like a building controls company. So it was a small construction and service outfit, kind of a niche industry here in town. And he had a new software that he needed loading up. And he goes, our guys are so swamped with work. I don't have anybody that has time. I don't have time. I need somebody to come in. I was like, I don't know anything. I didn't know what you did until you offered me this job. And she goes, it's okay. You'll be able to work through it. It'll be fine. So we moved back. We lived with them for a few months. And then I quickly got a rental house because living with your in-laws is great for a very short time. And they're wonderful people. And we're still good friends today, but you don't want to live with your in-laws. You know, that's just
especially when you're living and working with
working with Pop. You know, so you're there, and then you find out your wife is pregnant again, and you go, okay, all right. So now I really need space very quickly. Within 3 months, I had helped him get the software set up, and it was running. I was going on interviews for other jobs because he had told me it was a temp job, and you know, I'm not hiring family. That's not fun. I start going on interviews. I was thinking get back into education somehow. So I think I interviewed with the University of Phoenix and trying to get something going. So I went on a couple of interviews. He called me into his office one day and he goes, sit down. I want to talk to you. Okay. He goes, how do you like it here? I'm like, well, I mean, I really like the people. I like the business. I like the industry's interesting. I don't have any background in this. I'm no engineer. I'm really learning a lot, but I don't know anywhere near what you guys know. And he goes, would you be interested in sticking around for a while? was like, sure. I didn't know this at the time, but he had something in his back pocket and he needed somebody for. And so what it was when Google built the first data center in the area, they were hired as a sub of a sub of a sub, but they were hired to help out, and they needed a project manager. And none of his guys, again, were able to pull off of their other jobs and go work full time over there. He had a couple of techs that had to go work full time there, and then he needed a project manager. And so he goes, "You're college educated, you're smart enough, you can figure it out. Go." Like, okay, great. Which was great because the pay got drastically better. The hours got drastically longer. That was crazy to build. I think it was a $500 million data center in like a year and a half or something like that. It was wild. But during that time, his designated successor, so to speak, of the company, and he had taken me to breakfast with him and laid it all out. And I said, I don't have any intention of trying to take over this business. And this guy was all nervous about me being in the business. I said, no, I understand. He's, 15-year industry veteran. He's been with the company that long. He understands it. I get it. I'm the newbie. It's no problem. Well, he lost his head through all that and left. So I remember distinctly, I can't remember what time of year it was or anything, but I just remember distinctly walking into his office one day, and I shut the door and I sat down with him and I said, "Jim, what's your plan?" He's like, "I don't have a plan." So I said, "You want to make me the plan?" And he stopped and looked and he's like, "Are you really interested in that?" I was like, "Yeah." "Is interested in owning the business?" "Yeah." "Yeah, interested in this business?" "Yeah." "So let's talk about what that would be like." And so we started talking. It wasn't going to happen right then. It was going to be a transition period. And in that, I'm still over being the PM at this Google job. And in that, he got connected through a mutual friend to a guy who became our third partner. He was in St. Louis at the time, wanted to move back to Omaha, wanted to get back out of the corporate life and into a small company. And he brought a ton of experience and a different way of approaching the business, which was fantastic for us ultimately. So over the course of a year, we worked out a deal and started that. It was a very unique deal. And I think if it hadn't been his daughter involved and his grandkids involved, the first and only so far, that it may not have been so generous, but he made it very easy for us to buy in to the business to start. So we started with basically a 10 to 12 year plan to buy him out completely. And after 6 years, we did.
So what year was this? This is 06?
This was so we moved here in 06 from the Carolinas. And then, so through 08 and into 09 is when we discussed how to arrange this and how to get it all done. And then May of 09 is when we pulled the trigger.
And so you, over 6 years, basically
then
bought the equity.
Yeah, we built up, and then there were some. You have three personalities in running a business, and sometimes that works really well, and sometimes there's some conflict that comes up. Ultimately, his plan was to transition out. It's hard to let go of something you built so long, and he and our other partner really didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things.
The guy that got brought in.
The guy that got brought in. His name is Frederick. Great guy. Fantastic knowledge, fantastic experience. And he helped us change from kind of your typical small, low bid contractor that does good service, which it had excelled at, but wasn't super profitable, to, hey, let's take on some bigger projects. Let's take on some more meaningful clients. So Google is a great data center job, but we need some actual data center customers. We need some hospital customers. We need some people that spend some money and really need somebody that is an expert to help them. And we transitioned from being kind of a low bid contractor over the course of 5 years to being a sole service provider to high tech, high touch type customers. And that was that's what the experience he brought really did.
So did you three have clearly defined roles, or did it start as just kind of a melting pot?
It was kind of a melting pot. The three of us were responsible for all customer relationships. We were the sales team. Jim was the president because he had been there for the longest. He still owned the largest share when we first started. And Frederick and I, we kind of split, and it was kind of a melting pot. But what you have to understand, when we came in, there were, I think, 11 employees at the time. Most operation, like electrician types, installation type crew, and then you had a few service guys, and that was it. That was the whole company. And they did a few million in revenue a year, and that was it. So over the course of the next 5 years, we grew to 30 and started to have more clearly defined roles as to how everything went. I ended up, Jim kind of just gave more and more responsibility down to the two of us, and we transitioned at one point to where Frederick was more operations, I was more sales, which is kind of backwards from where we should have been probably, but that's hindsight being what it is. That's okay. It was a good experience for both of us, and learning how to work with employees and work with growth and working through all these changes. Because we grew the company from 2009 to when we sold in 2020 to almost 50 employees by the time we sold. We had tripled the revenue of the company and the profit that went with it. So, it was, the first year we didn't make money. And the last year we were very profitable. But that was a testament to the value we were providing.
You sold to private equity.
Yeah, so it was a connection. Frederick, from way back in his previous days, they just got reconnected on LinkedIn. If you own a business now, you're getting phone calls once a week from New York. Some private equity guy wants to buy you, blah, 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 blah. We ignored every single one of those. But this guy was a previous connection. They knew each other. And what are you doing? What are you doing? Trying to catch up, doing that type of thing. And through the conversation, this other guy, whose name was also Frederick, goes, that sounds just like what one of our portfolio companies does. Have you guys entertained the thought of selling? And it's funny because we had talked about it. What do we do? Frederick and I had a 12-year age gap. He was 12 years older. Still is, actually. But he and I had talked about it several times. I was like, how do we transition out of this at some point? Is it, do you buy me out? Is it, do we do some kind of ESOP with the employees? What do we do? And we had looked at a few different options. And we had left this on the table as an option, as, hey, if somebody calls and comes out of the blue and it just makes sense, maybe we do it. Because that would be we had said, from our perspective, the two of us, that would be the simplest, because it would be the cleanest for the both of us. Every other transition that we looked at had some type of potential mess. Now there's a mess that's tied with this too. We can go into that later, but that was something where we left it open, and their mutual connection started it, and it was the fastest, I think. When we bought in, it was a year of talking and figuring it out and trying to find if this is a good fit, and here we go, and then we went. This was 4 months of let's go. From the time they took a peek and then gave us a letter, and then we closed. Wow. It was basically September through December.
Did y'all have a hard for tax reasons, or was December like a hard?
Well, for us, that was our fiscal also, so that made sense. And they kind of liked the clean break at the fiscal year, so that was what kind of made sense from both of our standpoints. And they had, unbeknownst to us at the time, they had somebody in the background looking at them. And so they ended up closing on us and another company the same day. So they bought a company in Atlanta and one in Omaha the same day, and then tried to, fold us in, and then the mess began, all that kind of stuff.
So y'all sold out to private equity.
Yeah.
And I'm Assuming, by the way that you said it didn't go well for them.
So the company itself is still there, and there's still folks that are there. But I think the hardest piece was what it did to the employees, the people that we worked with locally.
Did they know about it when you were selling, or
No, and that was one of the things they really emphasized to us right away: is do not tell them, because it'll just create a whole lot of problems, and it probably won't happen. And then they're going to be concerned that you're just going to be selling the company, every time somebody walks in the door and they don't know who they are. They're going to think you're just selling the company again. So, yeah.
That's my problem with being an employee.
Yeah.
You never know what's going on behind the curtain. You don't know if they're in financial straits.
Right.
You don't know if they're going well and selling out to private equity, and
Right.
then they could come in and bring in all their personal people. Like,
Yeah.
it can go any way and you don't know.
You don't know. When you're in a small company, though, I look at it and I go, if you're an employee and you're ambitious, you want to go into a big company if you don't want to be an owner, because there's places to move. And in a big company, it's not going to go away like that. It's not going to just go poof, I'm part of another company, usually. But even then, you're still just part of it. It's a lot smoother transition. And when you have that heft, it's hard to make big changes.
But you were a decent sized company at 50 people.
Yeah, we were a decent sized company, but then you get absorbed into a company of 1,000, and it doesn't much. And you have to change to their processes and their way of thinking and their way of doing business, with the added pressure of, not knowing behind the curtain, we're trying to sell ourselves right now to somebody bigger. When they bought us, that was already there. They were on the hook, and this big fish was ready to bite. And there was a lot of extra pressure to transition faster, to make things happen now. So there was the rosy recruiting speeches that we got leading up to it, and then there was the reality after the fact. And
so, did you retain any equity?
I actually still have equity.
You still have equity. Mm-hmm. And did it sell again?
It has not.
It has not. So still the original.
It's still the original. Yep. And it was still the original from what it was. The CEO and the president and that whole executive team that was there doing all these acquisitions and building it, but not actually running the company well, I would say. They were acquisition people. They were private equity people. They didn't operate the company well. They got replaced by people that could operate the company well. So I think overall, the strength of that company is coming back around, and it'll be just fine. And the people that stuck it out are going to be okay, and they're going to make something for it, because we made sure that a few key employees had equity in the new company as well. And that's, I think, a piece where you have to, as an employee, think ahead too and go, if I'm in a small company and I want to be a president or whatever someday, I need to get into a big company where there's opportunity to grow. Because in a small company, it's pretty quickly you tap out at the top. If you're not going to take over, then the ownership, you're as high as you're going to get in the organization. But the small company can do a whole lot more for you personally if you have good ownership team. I think we were good ownership team. We took care of the employees. We made sure that, hey, their healthcare is 100% covered. So we paid for their premiums, a gap insurance, and we helped fund their HSA account on an annual basis. And we paid some for the family too, but the employee themselves had no out-of-pocket costs for healthcare. We paid well. We tried to keep tabs on where the industry was, paying people. So we paid at the top, and then we gave bonuses based on company performance. And that was a key insight that, I think we kind of came together on as an ownership team to say that, and it took many, many years of figuring out the right formula, so to speak, of getting that done. But, when you take care of your people, they'll take care of the customers, they'll take care of you, right? So our job was to make sure that our employees had everything that they needed, that they were paid well, that, they were taken care of, they had opportunities to grow and develop and get better. But, ultimately, it's like if they're taken care of, they'll take care of the customer and everything will come back around. And we said, instead of dividing the company between operations and sales and service and stuff, we're going to pay everybody well, and then we're going to give you bonuses based on performance as individuals in the company. It kind of came down to, there were two pieces to it, but everybody had the baseline. You're going to get some good bonuses. And they were 5-figure bonuses, some of them, because they earned it and the company did well. So we, would get to Thanksgiving this time of year and we'd be calculating how we're doing as a company, looking forward to the end of December and going, we can give this much in bonuses. And basically we took a pool of money and put it into it and divided it amongst the employees based on their personal performances also. So
I want to steal Ryan's favorite question.
all right.
Do you think that being a college athlete gave you an advantage in business?
I think
I hadn't even crossed my mind yet.
haven't even gotten there, right? I think one thing that helped me probably get into the business ownership of the company was that, in college, I was playing at Truman State, and I had been invited to the team. I didn't get a scholarship, but I had some academic scholarships. I was fine, and the coach I'd given the tape to, I talked to him and said, "Hey, I'm coming to Truman anyway. Is there an opportunity to play still?" I love football still, and so I said, "Is there an opportunity to come?" And he goes, "Give me the tape. I'll look it over and let you know." And he basically wrote back and said, "I don't have a scholarship for you, but you're invited to that you can play if you'd like to play." So I said, "Oh, you mean I need to walk on?" He goes, No, you can be on the team. I'd love for you to be on the team if you want to play. I just can't give any scholarship money." I said, "Oh, okay, that's fine. I'm doing good on the academic side, so we'll be good." So I played for 2 years. I got beat up on the scout team for 2 years, and the real reason is that athletically I was good, but I wasn't good enough to be I played quarterback. I wasn't good enough to be a starting quarterback at the D2 level. So I had there's two other guys that came in as freshmen the same year as I did, and they were exceptional athletes. One was a head case, but he had the body of a Greek god. And actually, I had my offensive coordinator at the time. During practice one day, he goes, "Damn it, Haug." Like, what? "If I had your brain and Adam Sherry's body, I'd have the perfect fucking quarterback." I'm like, "Thanks, coach." I think. I don't know. But through that, you learn discipline, you learn hard work, you learn that, hey, in looking back, you learn that college students actually have a ton of time at their disposal. You don't really realize it until you have kids. But at the time, you think, "Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I have to organize myself. I have to keep on schedule. I have to keep up. I have to, stay healthy. I have to gain 10 pounds, as coach keeps telling me, gain 10 pounds, which I did after I stopped playing. And then, you have to just be disciplined in your life and what you do, because it takes a lot of time. After the second year was done, I went and visited with the coach, and he basically told me I was going to be playing scout team a third year. And I said, "Coach, I can't do that. I'm done. I'm getting beat up physically. I can't do that." So one life regret is I didn't go over to the defensive side and say, "Hey, can I play on defense?" But I said, "Could I help coach?" At the time, I'm learning to be a teacher and a coach, and it's like, I want to do that. Can I learn to be a coach here? Yeah, I would love to have you. And so they actually paid me to do that a little bit, a very, very little bit. But I got to learn how to break film down and help draw up plays, help draw up schematic, and work through coaching my peers, basically. So I suddenly went from a player to a coach, and I'm a student assistant coaching my peers. And it was difficult, because I think that the peer aspect was tough for them to swallow, that now I'm a coach and I have a kernel of authority now just because of the position. So I had to learn how to deal with that, because they're like, "Whatever, man, you're a third year. I'm a fifth year senior. I don't have to listen to you, kind of thing. So having to deal with that, and that was a maturing process for me. It's like, okay, how do you actually gain authority for real, not just a positional authority, but how do you do that? I did it by working hard. I did it by just putting hours in. I just did it by, showing up early. And I had one of the coaches come to me. He's like, why are you here? You don't need to be here. And stuff like that. I'm like, how am I going to learn if I'm not here doing it? So I said, if you're going to do something, you may as well jump in with both feet and just do it. And that was kind of my attitude. And that transition to coaching, I think, was actually more instructive to me in my life than it was to playing, because there's a whole lot more to work.
You learn leadership and working as a team.
And then working as a team, but you also realize the level of effort it takes to put together something that works. As a player, you show up to practice. Well, there's a practice plan. You didn't put it together. You just do the practice plan. So you start to see the difference between an employee and an owner, because you can take ownership in your role, and that's good to do. And that's what you want your employees to do. That's what your teammates, that's what you want your players to do. But putting together the plan, creating the whole, so you sit down on Saturday after the game and you go out and have a nice relaxing time, and that was great. Sunday morning, you're right back in the office working. Well, players aren't. They're coming in the afternoon to watch film. How do you watch film that hasn't been graded? The coach is there, at 8 a.m. with his donut and coffee going, how do we do yesterday? How do I break this down? A lot of times I got the job of driving 3 hours one direction to trade film with the next team on Sunday morning. And I'd meet the coach, and it would be literally a handshake. Here's your tape. Thanks for the tape. Grab a coffee, and we're back on the road heading back, because we had to get back for team meetings at the end of the day. So all that background effort that as a player you don't really think about, that as an employee you don't really think about, all that stuff in the background, I learned helping coach at Truman. So I think that was actually bigger. And then also seizing opportunity when it came. So like when my father-in-law's chosen successor left, to me, I said, well, there's a wide open door here. And I walked right in. That opportunity, I told this to a few of the employees, later years and stuff. And they're like, well, how did you guys, he picked you? Because I said, no, I walked in that door myself and asked. I said, that door was open to anyone else in that company. Because at the time he was desperate.
That's the third instance in your story of you just asking, because it doesn't hurt
you have
to
to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask.
Have you always been that way? Or
no, not at all. Not at all.
Because that takes a certain level of confidence to be able to.
Well, you have to have confidence in yourself.
A science teacher,
right? I'm still a geek at heart. I'm still a nerd. So that's okay. I'm not always that way. Even now, I can find myself going, I'm not going to take that jump right now because it just doesn't feel right or doesn't feel comfortable. Sometimes it just came down to just a gut feeling of this is the right move, go. And I don't know if that's divine providence coming down and saying, the spirit moving and saying, hey, take this opportunity and go, giving me that little extra confidence to just ask or go. Maybe that's what it is. I don't always know, but there were definitely times in my life where, making the switch to help and coach, that was partly I know I want to go down this path at the time. And so to me, it makes sense to ask that question. Hey, could I help? And they're like, yeah, that'd be great. And okay, hey, can I do this? What can I do? How can I learn this? And it was really more them giving some of their work off onto me, which I, ate up because it was great. You look and you ask for opportunities, and when you see something, go after it, because if it feels right, if it looks right, if it's probably not bad, and at the very least it'll be a good learning experience.
I saw a video over the weekend. I can't remember the name of this guy, but he's an Asian Australian, I guess you would call him.
Okay.
Motivational speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And he did this example in front of a stage. He held up 2 books and he's like, I've got 2 copies. Who wants them? And the whole room raised their hands and he just stood there and he kept holding the books up. And then someone came up and they stopped and they went to go reach for it. And he's like, I'm letting you take this and you're still waiting for permission.
Right.
He's like, that's the biggest problem, is that everyone in this room is waiting to be chosen.
Yeah.
But what you said in your story is that you went and asked for it.
Yeah.
Those people, the coach and then your father-in-law, they weren't even looking at you in that light until you went and asked for it.
Right.
So I think that that's a prime example of all the opportunities that got you to this seat right now are because you went and you asked for it.
And I don't know that I would have been, I might have been one of those guys in the seats still, if I didn't have enough confidence in myself to just say, yeah, you can do it. You can go for it.
Where did they come from?
I don't know if I have a good answer for that. Again, it may have, I feel like I said, there was a gut feeling. So maybe there was a little extra that I was given at the time. You know, I'm a faith-filled person. I think there's a hand of God that does move in you at times if you let it. And that feeling, I guess you have, which is just kind of this sense of, just a sense of calm, rightness of this is the right thing to do. It wasn't even so much that I could do it. It was more of a, this is the right thing to do. Like, this is the right opportunity to pursue. This is the right choice to make. So it was less about being like banging my chest, I can do it. It was more about just a sense of, this is the right thing to go after right now.
Did you have intentions when you walked in there to take this from a few $1 million to tripling it, or
heck no. I had no
what
idea
was your
what
vision?
I was doing.
What was your goal?
My goal simply was, but there were 2 things. One, I saw him struggling and kind of lost, and like he really looked lost at that moment in time. But 2, just seizing an opportunity, because I saw in my own life, my father and him, you know, owning businesses and being successful, and they're not, you know, living millionaire lifestyles or anything by any means, but they were comfortable, they were happy, they were successful, they made an impact in their community, in the church. And I was like, well, that looks like a good thing for me too. And this might be an opportunity for me to be like that.
Do you feel if you didn't have that, I'll call it mentorship, or that person in front of you to give you the vision that you saw, do you feel like you would be where you are today? Positive role model.
That's a hard what if question, because I don't have the opposite. I don't have, I love the stories of the rags to riches and people coming from nothing with no examples and fighting through it and everything like that. That's not what I had though. So I had a comfortable middle class upbringing. It turns out now that they were more broke than they let on, but you know, we lived well. We lived comfortably. You know, my mom stayed home, took care of us. We had all the needs that we needed. We had a house, we had food, we had clothes. Most were hand-me-downs from my cousins, but I didn't really care. I didn't realize at the time it was that big a deal. So we were comfortable living that. I didn't experience any traumas. I didn't experience any hardships that you might point to or anything like that. So without that, you know, if Dad just had a regular job as an engineer and did the same thing, I might think that, hey, just go to school, get a job and be an engineer, or, you know, be a teacher or be whatever, and that would be just fine.
So what were conversations with your dad like growing up around money, around, you know, work-life balance?
It was, I mean, as far as work-life balance, especially when I was younger, you know, he was always involved with my activities. You know, he was a Boy Scout leader when I was in the Scouts, and he would he didn't really help coach sports much at the time. He just was a little too busy for that at the time. But it was important for him to be involved in that. We just did family activities, just the normal, Midwestern family activities on an annual basis. Going around the seasons. But as far as money, we didn't talk a whole lot about money, to be honest. We didn't talk about a whole lot of things. He wasn't a very open, sharing person. Even today, I get him talking. I'll talk about work, and he's retired, but or his volunteer work or something like that, and that'll get him going. He was very much, I hate to use the word workaholic, but he worked really hard, and he worked a lot, and that was an example to me of just hard work is important, and you have to work hard to have a meaningful life and a good family. So,
how did owning a business change your viewpoint of money?
You have to. How did it change my viewpoint of money? I think it really solidified that money is a tool for me, not the goal. Right? Especially once you kind of got free of some of those debts, like the mortgage, get that off, and it's like, oh, okay, now I can use this money for other things. Now I can invest into things. I had other investments, and it's like, oh, I can actually start building a 401k. This is pretty cool. So before that, it's always like I'm scraping by. Now I can be generous. Now I can give. Now I can do that. Although I should point out that I learned earlier than that you need to be generous with what you have, even if it's not much. So it's the story of the
coins.
2 copper coins. Thank you. Yeah, I was struggling on what the metal was, but the coins, and it's giving out of what you have, what you've been giving, and basically proving that you're responsible enough to be trusted with more. And that was something I would share. I was part of the parish council I drove around the neighborhood here before coming over, because we used to live right over here, and went to St. Charles Borromeo and did all that stuff. And when I was on the parish council there, they'd bring new members in for a meeting, and there was always the money talk. And I remember having to sit there in front of people, and Father Hunky at the time's like, we had, and he's trying to dance around asking for money, but asking for money at the same time. And I said, what I've learned is that when I gave first, I didn't have to worry. Somehow there was always enough. And whenever I held back and said, no, we don't have it right now. I all these bills, I have all these costs, or Christmas is coming, or whatever it is, I always seem to run out. And that was before I owned the business. That was before we had made some significant money. So you learn that, hey, if you trust God, that He will take care of you. He'll provide for you. He's trusting you with this. You're the steward of this. You aren't the owner of this. You have to take care of it. Trust God. And it's all to me is when you give the first fruits, when you give first, when you stretch yourself and think, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it, but I trust in you. That's what He wants. That's what God wants from you, is to say, hey, I trust in you.
Cheerfully.
Yeah. I would even say sometimes you don't have to be cheerful about the fact that you're like, I don't know where this is coming from, God, but I trust in you. And it's that feeling of I do trust, and I know somehow you'll take care of it. And every time I did, He always did.
I think, do you find it harder to do that now that you've been successful financially? Because if you're making $40,000 a year, giving 10% is a lot.
That's a lot.
If you're making $400,000, giving 10% is a lot less.
Yeah.
Just for
perspective.
Like,
from perspective, it is absolutely.
Do you find it easier, harder, different? Because you can give from a place of abundance now.
Right. And I think it's harder. In a lot of senses, it's a lot easier to just give because, sure, no problem. It's not going to hurt me at all. It's harder to keep that trust. It's harder to say, yeah, I'll give you that. No, somebody asked for $100. Sure, here you go. It didn't hurt at all. I didn't feel it. I didn't miss it. I didn't, you're at a place of abundance. And so you're like, yeah, okay, I'm giving generously. And in one side you are, but on the other side, you're not giving to where you have to trust anymore. And now it's real easy. And I found myself getting caught up into that of saying, checking the accounts and going, how are things growing? How are things doing? Where are we at? And realizing that I'm not trusting God anymore. I'm trusting what's here that is mine. And you can't take it with you, right? Yeah, you want to make sure that your family's taken care of. You want to make sure that things are good at home and that your family doesn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. We're not going to have to worry about that kind of stuff. We live. Look at this country. I mean, even if you lost everything, there's so many supports in place to help somebody out that has nothing. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
so do you view your tithing as more of a responsibility or an obligation, or because I definitely I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of conversations about this in my men's group about do you tithe on 10% of your net income or 10%, like, especially as business owners.
Yeah.
And my whole men's group is business owners. So we talk about that a lot. And I think the conclusion that we come to is to do what you feel is right. Mm-hmm. But I've had trouble with, well, if I set it on auto pay, am I really giving from my heart, or am I doing it as just a responsibility?
It's not bad to be responsible. That's one thing I would say and there is a responsibility to give. And I think there is a responsibility to give back. And that's a basic component of giving, where I'm responsible to give back. I've been richly blessed. I need to bless back. But it misses the Christian need of, I think there's two components to it. One is trusting God. And that is a big, big component of that and that is where the second part is to give joyfully, but also give almost until it hurts or until it does hurt. Until you start to go, until that worldly part of you starts to go, that's a lot. I don't feel comfortable with that. And that's where I think the right line is. Wherever that line is for you personally, you can talk all day long about the legalistic nature of, is it gross margin? Is it net margin? Is it no? Who cares? Get it to the point where you have to trust God that this is going to be the right thing. That you go, I don't know. I'm giving. I'm responsible. I'm giving joyfully, and I trust in you. There's almost all of that together in that giving, because you have to be able to ultimately live in the love and trust of God. That's it. So
we've talked a lot on the podcast about the love of money and how there's people that are broke that have more of a love of money than someone who's wealthy. And I think that what that practice does is it instills gratitude. And when you're grateful for what you have enough, then God will reward you with more, because it's like giving someone a gift and they're not happy with it. Are you going to give them more gifts, more things to be ungrateful for? Right. And so,
and I think you're right. And that's where I go back to that responsibility piece you asked. Are you doing it because you feel responsible? You are responsible. You have to show responsibility, because that's what God's looking for from you. Are you a good steward of the resources and blessings you've been given? If you are, you will get more. That's why the rich get richer, right? Kind of thing. That was the whole parable of the talents thing. Are you responsible with what you've been given? Have you grown the blessings, and have you given back, and have you done that? So there is a piece of responsibility, and I understand part of that question too is like, is it responsibility only? No, you have to also give joyfully and with the trust in God that He'll take care of it. So yeah, I had a conversation with my dad about love of money, and he's like, I think maybe, and he came to me at one time and he's like, I think you guys love money. And I think that was the gist of the conversation. And I said, well, this was before we had really done well in the company. It's very early stages still. And I'm like, it's easy to talk about money when you have enough and you don't have to worry. It's easy for somebody with enough money to be like, well, no, you need to give, you need to do this, it's hard when you don't have much. And that's that little hill you've got to get over to trust God that
But also,
it will be fun.
Is enough a dollar amount, or is it?
Well, and that's just it. Yeah, it's enough. I've been on. I remember being on capital campaigns and being volunteer and helping and going into people's homes and saying, "Hey, will you give this?" And they're like, "No, we can't afford that." While the 65-inch TV is on behind them, and they have their $1,000 iPhones, and I'm like, we're not even asking that much. Can you give a little bit? And that to me is where people have to get past the, what are a need, what is a want, what is comfortable, what is necessary, and you go, I don't need much to be happy. Would I love to eat, pizza in Naples every Saturday? Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'm happy with Domino's. Pizza's my favorite, by the way.
What, going back to selling the company and your father-in-law. So he was no longer owner.
Correct. We had, after about, it was 5.5, 6 years, we accelerated the buyout.
It's like 2012.
Yeah. So it was about, it was more like 2014 at that time frame.
5 years later, so you're owner. 5 years later, you're going to sell. Did you bridge that conversation ahead of time? How did he feel about? Because
we had had a separate conversation actually about a year before the possibility of that sale came up. So probably about 2019, in the middle of that year. And we had just talked about, and he was asking, how are things going? Where's everybody at? And at the time, no thought of selling at that time. We were going well. Things were good. Everybody seemed happy. We were still growing. We were still, executing well. We were just making good progress on all fronts from the business standpoint. And he's like, "What are you guys thinking for the future?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "Frederick and I have had some conversations about what it might look like, and nothing's decided. We're just trying to see what might be the right fit for the future." And that was, to me, the future. Mm-hmm. It's out. And he understood that and stuff. And he basically gave me his blessing at that point. He just kind of said, "Well, I'm out of it. It's yours now. You do what's right for you and your family." I said, "All right, I appreciate that." And that was it. And then, a year later, that came along. So
I'm glad you asked that, because I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I bought a car for my father-in-law, and it was his patrol car when he was an officer. Yeah. Loves this car, and he just was, in a position where he was toying with the idea of selling it. We needed a car. Yeah. Worked out. I don't think I could ever sell that car.
Right. Yeah. Because it's like, no, that's my love, right?
Especially, growing a business, and that's his baby. I think it's a little different because, like you said, he bought into that business too, right?
He had bought into the business too.
So maybe a little less emotional attachment.
So a little bit, but there was a long period where he was the sole guy. He actually still had partners right up to the point where we were buying in, but they were all retired. They were just kind of sitting back and cashing some checks here and there. So that was mostly what he had done. So to take it from that point all the way up to where we were and entering the picture. So I think though that what helped was accelerating the buyout and letting him go off into retirement, because that was hard. That was a harder transition, I think, at that point than when we sold the company. I did get the question from one employee in particular, and he's like, "What does Jim think of this?" And I said, "We had talked, a year and a half ago, and he had said, it's not his anymore. It's up to you guys. So he had blessed it before it happened. And the guy was not happy about that. He was hoping that he was all mad about the situation. I don't think Jim's too mad about the situation because, through all this, we ended up getting a condo down in Orange Beach, and they spend 3 months a year down there for free. So I think Jim's pretty happy overall at the end result here. But
yeah, so it was interesting when I bought my first plumbing company. He never told his dad ahead of time. And so it was like my first day there. And he had tried to call his dad over the weekend, and his dad didn't answer the phone or whatever.
Oh, no.
And so he called him up, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you head down here?" It's like, I'm sitting there, and he's like, "Meet Ryan, the new owner."
Oh gosh!
Whoa!
And his dad,
right under the bus.
his dad was the one that started the company like 19 years ago.
Oh my gosh!
So
That's funny.
That's a whole different story. Yeah. That's a bad deal. Yeah, because actually when we closed the deal, we were in Orange Beach. We had gone down there. This was a place that Jim and my mother-in-law Sally, they had been going for years and snowbirding, and it had gotten progressively longer. It started at a week, and then 2, and then 3, and then it was up to 3 months, which is where they're at now. And it's been funny to watch that. But we were down there because we're like, let's go to the beach. Let's celebrate for Christmas. Now, my wife and I knew what was going on. I had not told him yet. When we got down there, though, it was 2 days before we close, and it was right after Christmas, and we were just going to spend through the New Year there while we closed on the 31st. So when we were there the day before, I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that this is happening." And he's like, "Okay, all right. Well, is it good?" I said, "It's good." He goes, "Well, congratulations." I said, "All right."
that was it.
That was it. Yeah, that was pretty much it. So
in the process of scaling the business and improving operations, what kind of things did you implement that led you to growing it? Like what went well?
Frederick, what went well? That's a good question. What went well? Frederick has a great analogy that he talked about, or a story. He's like, "Hey, there was this conductor. He came into an orchestra, and he had a certain way that he wanted things done. Now, this orchestra had the same conductor for 20 years. And the new conductor wanted the piano on the right, but it had always been on the left for 20 years. First day, he comes in and moves it over to the right. Drops a bomb on that thing. Nothing can get done. No, so he puts it back, and everybody settles down. Next concert comes along, he goes, I just want to move it a little bit. Just one position here. I think that balances a little bit. Great. Over the course of a year, it moves to where he wants it. And we found out the hard way that when you move the piano all at once, people go crazy. When you come in to ownership and you sit down and you start talking about what could we improve, there were some things right away that we did that made sense. We took a look at all of our jobs over the last couple of years and realized that every single low bid job out of town lost money. So we said, no more low bid jobs out of town. That was easy. We had some that were on the books that we had to finish, but it was easy to not get more. So that was a winner right away. Boom. We stopped losing money on a lot of jobs. And that was a piece that we realized pretty quickly, that if you just have no bad jobs, you're going to make money. It's hard to not have 100% no bad jobs, but if you can really reduce the no bad jobs thing, you'll be okay. But one bad job can sink a company. It's that razor thin for a lot of things. I don't think a lot of people realize that with contractors. You probably do as a plumber. But if you have a really bad job, it can sink your year and it can sink your company real fast. So we eliminated that. That was a really good one. A harder one was to say, you guys have to fill out timesheets. Now, the wage earners, the hourly guys, they were already doing that. There were 5 at the time that were not. They were just getting a salary. And they're like, why do we have to fill out a freaking time card? You're paying me the same no matter what. And we're like, it's so we can track how we're doing on jobs. What difference does that make? If it takes me an hour or if it takes me 10, I get paid the same and it costs the company the same. It's like,
We don't build a customer the same.
But we don't build a customer that way. And it was like, and guys, it's like you guys are doing all this service work basically for free because you're not tracking any time.
That's what I'm most working on right now is.
And it's a tough transition, I'll tell you
I
that.
need a job cost analysis for each job.
Right.
I need to break it down. I need to know which job I'm winning on, which job I'm losing on. If we're winning on a lot of jobs that look like this, let's find more jobs that look like this.
More jobs that look like
If we're losing on jobs that look like this,
yeah,
let's do less jobs that look like this.
Right.
The only way you can do that is if the data is good.
The data is good. We had basically no data. So we were building data from scratch and trying to figure it out. And, then it was simply a matter of, we're not organizing ourselves well. We had a guy that was running around to all the install crews, and he's kept spending time driving to all these jobs. Like, can you call them? Maybe just pick up the phone and say, where are you guys at? Well, I got to check and make sure. And that was a trust issue with this person. He didn't trust that they were going to do a good job. He does excellent work. And sometimes when you have a perfectionist in charge, they expect everybody else to be perfect too. And I was like, perfect is the enemy of good. Let's just get good at what we're doing and get it done. Because we're out of hours. Guess what? Hey, I had 10 hours budgeted and you're at 20. That's a losing job.
Mm-hmm. Before we started, you asked about the podcast, how long we've been doing it and stuff. And that's exactly a conversation we had, or you and I had, was we've been doing it for about a year, but we've only started kind of figuring this out now.
Right.
Like,
you figure it out.
We had no clue what we were doing. And I would argue we barely have a clue now. But we're moving in the right direction.
Right.
And that's all that matters, is get started and start moving.
Start moving.
Your business will be a lot better if you take action.
Yeah, I had a quote that from Harry Truman that I had pasted by my computer screen, and I had it there every day to remind myself and other people that were looking that, hey, it simply said, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Just take action. It's not always going to be great. It's not always going to be good. Sometimes you're going to really mess up, but action always is going to have a more reward than sitting there waiting for something to happen or just doing the same old thing over and over again. That was the other part. We had to keep learning from our experiences. We had that software that I set up when I first started working, it got completely dumped because it was not helpful at all. It took too much time. It was just a mess. And it was probably set up by a guy that didn't know what he was doing. So that was part of the issue. We went simple. We'd get together on a Friday morning at the whiteboard and say, all right, where's your job at? And where do you need to be next week? Where do we got to be? Where do we got to be? Where do we got to be? And we had to start working through the typical excuses that you get. Well, we got to wait for so-and-so to be done. Okay, well, when are they going to be done? Well, I don't know. We'll pick up the phone and call and find out. Well, they always say they're going to do something. And I mean, you're running into this, I'm sure, on jobs too. It's like somebody said they're going to be done. You show up, they're not done. Well, that's our mistake for not double checking with somebody there on site ahead of time and driving all the way out there and finding out we're not ready.
That's the problem with software. So we'll have builders with software.
Yeah.
And their schedules say they're ready for us.
Yeah.
And
No.
Like, okay, so you schedule the guy to go there. Then you go there, you waste, say, an hour driving there.
Yep.
There's no one there. Then you got to drive back and go to the next place or whatever. And like, what do? Do you charge the builder? Like, hey, you said to be there,
right,
so we're going to charge you a trip charge,
right,
because your schedule said this. Then you get in bad with the builder. So it's
right.
like
That's a balancing act right there, because you want to maintain a good relationship with these contractors and people that you're working with. And when we started working more and more directly with customers, that became less and less of a problem. So partly was we got better at communicating, and when we got bigger, we had more like a foreman or a superintendent type guy that would go to these job sites, get to know the folks at the site, the people that we worked for, the general contractor, so that he could pick up the phone and call and say, hey, where are we really at? I said, we can schedule somebody out there next week if you're ready, but are we really ready? And being able to build enough of a relationship quickly enough that they could actually get an honest answer from the guy and be like, yeah, maybe Wednesday we'll be ready for you, but not before then. Okay, perfect. That's what we'll schedule then. Because if you work on that end, then on the back end, when you're struggling to balance between two projects that have to get done, it's easier to have that conversation with the superintendent going, I need you out here Monday morning at 6 a.m. Or you're off the job, and they'd be like, well, okay, hang on. We got this one job we got to finish. Can we be out there Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. and we'll work through the weekend if we need to? Fine, that'll work. All right, as long as you're done by next week. Great, thanks. Having the ability to have somebody in that spot that is able to build those real quick relationships and do that. And then honestly, when we transitioned away from mostly low bid work to more owner direct work, that puts you on a different level when you have those conversations. When the project superintendent knows the customer chose them to be here, it's a different level of conversation than being just a beat down low bid guy that has to beg, borrow, and steal for every dollar and hope that the general contractor is nice to him on this job.
So when you're running your business from a place of abundance and not from greed, it makes it a little bit easier to take care of your employees and drive culture. And how did you balance driving culture with bonuses and incentives and paying into their HSAs and all that versus paying yourself a salary and your partner a salary and taking draws?
We had a salary. And I think I had a conversation with an employee at one point, I think, because they're like, well, you guys we're doing really well. I mean, no, we're getting bonuses. Your profits must be massive and stuff like that. I said, our profits are good. I said, but you have to stop and think that, we're a sub S corp business. We go to zero January 1st every single year. Now, we still have money in the bank, and we very rarely dug into a line of credit or anything. We mostly operated off of our own cash. But that meant we didn't take our stuff. We had our salary that we just lived on. We didn't take our draws until the last half of the next year. So we were 6-7 months in arrears, except we would pull enough to pay taxes if we needed to pay taxes. But that was about it. And then we didn't realize any actual true gain. So if it's 2015, I'm not getting 2015's profit until late 2016. And I don't think they understood that. I was like, guys, you're operating off of our profits. And when you see that retained earnings grow over years, you start to understand that, oh, hey, there's a lot of risk involved here. If all this goes south, that number goes away and we get nothing. So
what was the biggest learning curve for you? So you didn't come from industry. You didn't come from business background. What was the biggest learning curve for you stepping in there, other than a leadership role that we kind of went in from a business standpoint?
Oh, what was the biggest learning curve? My gosh. First, I'm in a technical industry that I didn't come up in or understand. I didn't study to be a construction manager or any construction management or anything like that. So I'm learning the technical aspect of our industry, how construction works. I'm learning sales, I'm learning, customer service, I'm learning a little bit on the marketing side, but honestly, we were mostly direct sales, so there wasn't a lot of marketing necessarily.
You were mostly commercial.
Yes, we were 100% commercial and industrial, and that was good because the consumer facing side just it wouldn't work with our industry anyway. But
that's probably more saturated too.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'd be competing against plumbing companies, and I'm not going to do that. So, no, you look at we worked with a lot of heating and air guys. That's who we primarily worked with in the construction world. We were usually a sub to them. So you have the big boys that are doing the big commercial industrial works, but you also had the little ones that were dabbling in both. They had their consumer business, their residential business that was actually a massive part of their operation. And then they would also do some commercial and maybe an industrial here and there. So you had to work with both the big boys that are like you, focused solely on commercial and industrial, but also work with these guys and get them to understand the value of what you're providing. Because a lot of them are like, why don't I just throw a bunch of thermostats in? And that's a lot cheaper. You guys just do that for us. I'm like, hire an electrician. That's not what we're about. We're focused on energy management. We're trying to save energy. We're trying to reduce operation costs, make it easy for the customer, and do all that. Um, learning, I think learning that, but that's all kind of technical and skill-based learning. So was it hard? It took time, but I don't know if it was hard. I think learning how to work with business partners, learning how to work with employees, and then working with customers too. But even that's kind of more of a skill-based sales and customer service approach. Working with and figuring out how to set vision, how to create a culture around being successful as a company, together as a team, and really talking about the team aspect of that. We talked about, we had the analogy of a car, and all the tires have to work well, and the steering is set by the leadership. The fuel is from sales. You got to have sales to fuel the car. So you have, each wheel is operations, finance, service, sales. How's everybody doing? And we started, and this, it's not like we had this day one. This developed over years. And you'd have red, green, yellow, and how's every wheel doing? And when you had all 4 wheels green and you had fuel in the tank and good steering, man, it was a super profitable year. When you had a red tire, oh man, we were in trouble. It wasn't like bad trouble, but it's like, we're just not going to be able to do much this year, guys, because we were not good here.
So you exited the business 4 years ago, roughly.
Yeah.
4.5 years ago. What's life look like today?
I've been investing with some properties and learning through that whole experience, and that's been a learning curve and a half. And that's an expensive learning curve too, I'll tell you that. I'm looking at, opportunities that are out there. But I've really enjoyed having time to spend time with my youngest 2 that are still at home. My oldest is graduating from college and getting married this next year. And then my oldest daughter, she's down at KU, started her college experience down there. So I've got a sophomore and an 8th grader left. The last 4 years, I've gotten to coach football. That was a lot of fun. I've always been involved with their sports as much as I could be, but it didn't always mean I could dedicate the time to coaching. And that was great to get back into it after 20 years of being away from it. I'm finding that I really, now that his 8th grade season is done, I'm already missing it. And so I got my little pad here. I was drawing up plays beforehand, even though I'm not going to be coaching football next year. So, it's fun to think ahead and plan for that kind of stuff. So I've really enjoyed having the time to spend with the family and do that type of thing, and not have to have the weekly 9 to 5 grind. Because even when I was owner, we were there. Once things settled in and we were good, it was 45, 50 hours a week, and you're going through the daily grind every single day, every single week, and all through the year. And it's great and it's fulfilling, but it also, there's times where you're driving to a school board meeting on a Tuesday night and missing your kid's ball game or missing the dance competition or doing that type of thing. So, I don't have that anymore, which is kind of nice.
And then what's the future look like? Do you ever have any aspiration to buy another company or start another company?
Yeah, I think definitely that's definitely in the hopper. I'm looking. I get on the business, buy sell websites and stuff every once in a while just to see what's out there and poke around. And yeah, I definitely would like to do that. I would love to do something with good people, good partners, good customers. I love working with customers. I miss that piece a lot right now. I miss going in and seeing the people and going around the office and talking to everybody and how's the families, how's all that. I miss that kind of aspect a lot. I miss the solving problems and helping people and with their businesses and getting better. And so I definitely would be open to opportunities, and I'm definitely going to do something again. What it is,
Do you want to wait till the kids are done with school,
that's,
or if opportunity comes up in the meantime?
I think if an opportunity comes up, I would probably jump on it. You know, it's going back to that feeling where, you know, if I've got that sense that this is the right timing, this is the right opportunity, this is the right thing, I'm going to jump at it, you know. And while I might not be actively knocking down doors to find that opportunity, I've got my ear to the ground and I'm open to those.
So what is your philosophy on setting your kids up for the future, or your, you know, upon your passing, you know, the adage of the first generation earns it, the second generation spends it, and the third generation loses it. How are you fighting against that?
Well, part of it's good to see some, and I have 4 kids, and they're all going to be different. I can already tell. And my oldest is definitely a driven, more entrepreneurial type kid. He's out there. He's trying to do that. He's going to get into farming, agriculture, that type of thing. That's what he's studying down there. He's working for a farm to the west of town, and he's already worked himself up in college, kind of into that, you know, top 1 or 2 spots, you know, under the farmer in the operation. And he's going to work for him after graduation for a couple of years. His goal is to work for him for a couple of years, learn how things do it, maybe start to either get his own land and start his own operation, or he's a pure geek. If you think I'm a geek, he's a real geek when it comes to the technology stuff. He's a whiz at that thing. I mean, he could take a podcast setup or equipment and make it 10 times better. Just
should have hired him a year ago.
No, I mean, he's out there. He's got his own company, actually. So he does that he does that stuff for the church that they go to, and all that. So he is definitely going to be that way. He and I, when he was looking to move off campus, I said, why don't we look for a house and we could fix it up together? And so I said, I'll buy the house. We'll fix it up together. You can live there and collect rent and do all that kind of stuff. And then afterwards we'll sell it and we'll split the profits or something like that. So and through it, this is part of the learning part of real estate investing that's always fun, is you find out that the house is falling over and you got to call Thrasher and have them help it set back up. So I said, there's not going to be any profits. But that's okay. We learned through the experience. He got a lot of tool and learning on that, and he's learned responsibility on how do I collect rent, how do I get utilities, how do I do all that. I mean, it's good to see that thought process. Just how do I start to get more responsibility and take that on, and where do I go from here? So the thought process is hey, respect money. It's a tool. It's there. We don't have to worry about going hungry, guys, but we're not going to go spend money crazily. We're going to do things. I believe in spending money on the family in experiences. So we've taken some good trips. Like this summer, everybody had always wanted to go to Italy, so we did Italy and brought them all and the fiance, and had a great time. And that was a great experience. It was a lot of money, but that's okay. It was a really, really great experience. But teaching them that, hey, you need to be responsible with money. And it starts little, like, hey, my daughter, who's a sophomore, who loves Starbucks, wants to go to Starbucks. I was like, okay. And she's like, great, are you going to take me? I was like, well, you're learning to drive. Why don't you drive me over there? And okay. She goes, well, does that mean I have to order? Yeah. Does that mean I have to pay? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is, because you want it, and it's a luxury item. That's a fun thing to do. Yeah, I'm going to make sure you have food, but I don't have to buy you Starbucks. Yeah. So it's little things like that. It's like, oh, take responsibility. I was like, you dog sit for the neighbors. They pay you a ton of money to go over there and feed them twice a day and make sure they're in at night. It's fine. You have money. You can spend it on that. But also make sure you save your money. Make sure you start to invest your money. So I've helped them set up little investing accounts. And hey, this is what investing is, and hey, you hold for the long term. But as I teaching my sophomore, who I love her. I love her. But she's all into the fashion stuff. She's into the makeup stuff, all that kind of stuff. So I sit down with my financial advisor and her. We talk about what do we do and what do you want to invest in? And she's like, Target and Ulta and Lulu. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the best choices right now. Do you want to think about this, this, and this? And you talk to students, nope, this is what I want to invest in. Okay. It's now down 50%. So, hey.
Like, well, I think there's power to that.
Yeah.
Because that's how I was taught starting was like, look at where you're spending your money and see if you can own a piece of that company and start buying stock in it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I
also make the timings right.
Yeah.
That's how I got into plumbing.
Well, yeah. And it's like, hey, you spend money at these places. You love these places. You seem to get these places. But it's also a good lesson that just because you like it doesn't mean that it's a good business, doesn't mean it's a good investment, doesn't mean
I don't
that...
like plumbing, but it's a business.
I don't like the bills I get, that's for sure. But my gosh, when I get a $380 an hour bill for HVAC repair, I'm like, dang, I need to be in HVAC. Mm-hmm. I thought we were making money in controls, but this is way better. I asked the guy, I said, do you see that money? He goes, not that much. I said, I agree. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so it's little bits here and there, and it's giving them more and more responsibility as they get older to take care of their own costs, their own means. So Alex, who's my oldest, we're talking about insurances and stuff like that because I've covered their insurances. Well, he went and bought his own car, and I said, guess what, bud? You have to pay for your own insurance. And he's like, oh. I said, yeah. Now, we worked a deal because it was domiciled at home that he got to share the savings of being on the family account. But I said, you're still paying for it.
And once he gets married.
Yeah. Which is weird now. Don't get me started on insurance, guys. Insurance and I don't get along. But you know that. I was telling you about. But that's good for him to understand the responsibilities that are out there and all that. So yeah, as they get older and they start thinking about new things, I say, okay, what about this? What about this cost? What about this expense? And they kind of look at you like, what? I said, yeah, that's all part of being an adult and having all this. You have to pay for this kind of stuff. What do you mean? How much is the phone? I said, that's $55 a month. What? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I pay for all of you. So guess what?
Start multiplying.
Start multiplying. Yeah. Oh.
So you mentioned that you would get back into business, but what, any kind of particular business, or are you just kind of?
I think a business that, it wouldn't
obviously
be like
HVAC, you said.
Well, yeah, I say $380 an hour. I think I should go to HVAC. But
I got to know this company.
yeah, I think it was I was overcharged. But that's okay. It was a one and done. They helped me get going. It was fine. But the needs, I think it would be, something where, I'm working with B2B, not B2C. That's where I came from. I think that would be where I would be more comfortable at. I think this would be a learning experience in itself. That'd be great. But I'm also, 45, and I don't necessarily want to spend 20 years figuring this out just to have to flip it, sell it, retire, whatever it is. So I would stick in that B2B realm. I'm familiar with the contracting world. I'm familiar with that. So I probably would lean that direction, and that's it. But I'm not particularly set on any one area, and that's just because you've got people are, did you love controls? Like what do you mean love controls? I didn't know anything. I didn't know they existed until I worked for the company.
It's a job. Like, does anybody really love their job?
Do they love their job? No, it said, and if you treat it like a job, it's one thing. If you treat it like a business, it's another. But I said, what the actual business does isn't the most important thing to me. It's, do I have a good team of people? Do I get to work, go to work and enjoy the people that I'm working with on a day-to-day. If you're not having fun, what's the point of this, right? If you're not making money and having fun, there's no point. It's just a grind then, and you don't want to be in a grind. I love working with customers and solving their problems. I don't really care what the problem is. I just want to help you get your business better and get to the next step. So, that could be, I work mostly with the schools. I had the education background, so I worked with a lot of K-12 and universities, and I enjoyed working with that. So anything related to education. The only thing maybe consumer or focused might be more of like an education related field. I wouldn't mind having some type of coaching responsibility, and that with especially with sports. I loved coaching youth sports. That is definitely, if you want to talk about, do you have a passion for something? Coaching youth sports is definitely something I'm passionate about, because I love seeing the growth and development of the kids over time, and seeing that spark when they get it, and seeing them light up and really excel at something that they didn't think they could do.
Did business give you any of that, or is it more youth?
I enjoyed working with the youth. I think that's part of it, and that goes right back to where I wanted to be a teacher and coach to begin with. And I think that people say follow your passion. Well, if I had followed my passion, I would still be a teacher and a coach, and I would have a wonderful life, and I would be a very happy person. I wouldn't have a condo at Orange Beach. I wouldn't be able to go on trips to Italy. I wouldn't be able to do some of the things we're doing as a family now. I'd live in a nice home right over here, probably. I mean, my first house was right over here on V Street.
You're really close.
Yeah. Literally, when I saw the address and looked it up, I thought, well, I'm going to drive by the old house and see how it does. And hey, the first ever little retaining wall I built, it's still there. It's a little leany, but it's all right. I did a pretty good job for
bad footings.
What footings? So you live and learn, right? But hey, it's still there. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Now it might still be there, but that's okay. It's a good life, and it's a good thing. And I would have been happy. Now I was able to do something else in the meantime to give me the freedom to be able to really pursue the passion with time and rest. I mean, I could not have coached as well his football team the last 4 years if I had the same grind, even if I was still the owner and I had more control of my schedule than I did as an employee before. I still would have been more tired. I wouldn't have been able to dedicate the time. I wouldn't have been able to be there for everything like I was the last couple of years. So
perfect. Before we end, what's one thing that you would like to just leave somebody with? If someone's in search of freedom, maybe they own a business, maybe they're looking at a business, maybe they're
do it. Oh.
maybe they're working for somebody and just want to walk in and have that conversation. Whatever it is, what would you leave them with?
I would say, what do you leave somebody like that with? You need to take it upon yourself to tell yourself that you are able to do that. I think that you can look at, you can just drive around town and look at some of the businesses that are out there. And, if you've been paying attention, you'll know the ones that are there for the long term and the ones that are a flash in the pan. And look at what the opportunities there are out there. There's a million opportunities out there. That's I think the biggest thing is people may be afraid to take that jump, but you need to look at yourself and go, what is the worst case scenario? And then believe in yourself enough to say that even if that happens, I'm still going to be better off for what I learned than if I didn't take that jump. And I sit here wondering all the time. I look back at my life and I go, do I have any regrets? Well, there's a couple. And it was always the things that I didn't ask or take the risk or take the jump. Those are the regrets, the ones of what if? What if I had done that? What if I had taken the risk? What if I had taken the jump? What if I went and knocked on the door and asked the question? Maybe I'd be somewhere else. Maybe you're still where you are, but at least you know. And so I would say that if you don't want to live with the regret of it, at least give yourself the opportunity to take that risk, take that chance.
Awesome. Well, Nathan, I appreciate it. Appreciate getting to know you and hearing your story. And yeah.
Thanks for the time.
Seeing what the next chapter is.
Maybe a plumbing company.
Thanks, sir.